Hi, my name is Jessica White, and I'll be showing you a little bit more about STEMWerkz, as well as how you can use it with Nodma and also Apples, just for your optimal learning for your children. Of course, it's always about mixing the different platforms, and obviously it's not always about staying on the screen. It's just small bite-sized pieces of screen work, but then it gives students the impetus to then go off and experiment on their own, whether that be with 3D material objects that they can find in the kitchen or around the home or in the classroom, or out in nature. So we definitely encourage that kind of hybrid learning, which can be really exciting for the children. So I know it can be sometimes quite difficult to understand like all the different platforms and how they're used specifically in context. So this is just a video to give you a quick kind of introduction to how it can be used. And of course, feel free to play around with it in your own way. This is not, instructions, so to speak. It's not something that you have to do. You probably know your children much better than, well, of course, you know your children much better than I do. So, really just, understand what they need and specifically where you are in the curriculum. And but really, this is just to help, perhaps if they've have had learning gaps because of the pandemic, and they need a certain bridge to help them get to the learning objectives before the end of term, or perhaps in the summer holidays. So I hope this helps, and I'll start by sharing my screen. Excuse me. Okay, so you should be able to see now that we are actually in the STEMWerkz application. You can launch that and you'll see that you're actually in the application through the students' logins, which I've shared via email. And that's where the student login is. We don't know which students are in each program because it's anonymized, but you might want to, with your student logins, just put a little note of their names, so they know which is their login, basically, and too as well. But basically every platform looks the same, and you use the student logins for the teacher to go in as well. And the focus is very much on the front end rather than the back end, like with Nodma or with Apples. So it doesn't matter that you are the teacher and you go in with the student login, so that's fine. And so I just wanted to show you a little bit about Quests. Quest was built with a lot of feedback from teachers that we had that requested that there is a need to have more of a learning journey. So to have that learning journey, then we really wanted to provide different kinds of topics. So as you can see here, there is the Meadow mission. So if I can just go in and have a look, so we can click on start. And don't mind that it takes a few moments to load. It's just quite heavy animation. So, just have a few seconds patience where it loads up. And here you'll see the lovely mascot, which kind of lands on different quests. You don't have to attempt the quest chronologically. You can do them in any which way you like. But there are suggestions, obviously, by your little mascot. So we can go into diversity of living and non-living things, and let's take a look.
Can you identify some of the living and non-living things around you? How do you tell? Do they have different characteristics that help you differentiate them? Oh, you think there's different groups of living things? Let's find out together.
Okay, so as you can see here, then this is our current task, and we can watch the interactives below. You can see that there are other parts which are locked. So this was based on feedback that we got from teachers, that it's important to not only have the actual interactives themselves, but also to have certain parts that are locked before we then actually go into the further parts. So we'll just take a look.
The eagle and the kite can both fly, but one of them is a non-living thing. Let's take a look at some of the objects and see which groups they belong to. The eagle and the kite can both fly, but one of them is a non-living thing. So how do we know which is a living thing and which is a non-living thing? Take a look at some of their characteristics. The eagle needs water, air, and food to survive, while the kite does not. The eagle reproduces by laying eggs, while the kite does not. The eagle also grows over time, while the kite remains the same size over time. And finally, the eagle responds to changes on its own, while the kite is unable to. The eagle and the kite can both fly, but one of them is a non-living thing. There is a caterpillar crawling on the ground and a toy car moving near a tree. It seems like both things are able to move around on their own. If we look closer, we can see that there is a boy nearby controlling the toy car with a remote control. This means that the toy car is not moving on its own. Some leaves have fallen onto the ground. The caterpillar is starting to move towards one of the leaves on the ground. The caterpillar starts eating the leaf when it reaches it. The toy car does not respond to the leaves on the ground and just moves over them. We can see from here that the caterpillar is able to respond to the leaves that had fallen to the ground, and it eats the leaf as it needs food to survive. We also know that the caterpillar can grow into a butterfly. The butterfly can then reproduce by laying eggs, which hatch into caterpillars. These characteristics of the caterpillar are all characteristics of living things. On the other hand, the toy car does not respond to changes, nor does it require food, water, or air, and it does not reproduce or grow. Therefore, the caterpillar is a living thing, while the toy car is not a living thing. From these examples, we can see that living things have four main characteristics. They need food, water, and air to survive. They reproduce. They grow over time, and they can respond to changes around them. Can you spot some living things around you?
Okay, so this is just, it's quite descriptive. Obviously it's not that much interactive as the other ones, but I think it's an important part because for the lower levels, then there is quite a lot of explanation. Partly this is to help, obviously yourselves, teachers, because obviously the explanation part is probably more kind of, I would say, monotonous part. Being a teacher, I know this, like having to explain everything and so on. And we've done a lot of research around this, that it's actually about the storytelling. So, you can get, for example, can get children to actually tell their own stories, like within their own context. So, for example, you can get them to go outside and you can get them to look around and say, what are the living things? What are the non-living things? And see how they've interacted with them. You can have a look in the classroom, perhaps if you have plants in the classroom, or you can ask them to think about what they have at home and describe what's living and what's non-living. And the important thing here is the characteristics. So as you can see, then the living have four main characteristics. You could perhaps talk to the children about what those four main characteristics are and get them to list that by exploring outside, perhaps in their home, or with each other in pairs. So it's a real good kind of, hybrid learning activity where we introduce the topic through this animation and then they can go off and explore. So you don't have to use it as a standalone tool. Okay, so just a second, sorry, I missed the cursor there. So So you have already unlocked the second one. So that then goes on to the, the second one. And, you know, obviously we try to like stagger the learning objectives so that they obviously match the kind of level. So we introduce the topic and the basics, the foundation, and then it goes to a higher grade or a higher learning objective rather.
This is Tim's living room. There are living things and non-living things around the room. Can you classify them into the correct groups? Click on the objects to see their characteristics.
Now, as you can see here, this is more interactive. So now we're going to, you know, go to the practice. So we've done the presentation and now we go to the practice. So we have here like a hamster. And so that's, you know, put in the living things category. And then you can actually click on the objects to see their characteristics as well.
Do you like tomatoes? This plant makes its own food to survive. It reproduces through seeds, grows over time, and responds to changes.
So as you can see, then they list, you know, and repeat the 4 characteristics of living things. They grow over time, they respond to changes, are just 2 of them. So you can actually get the students either to click on the living objects to hear the repetition, if you feel that they need more experience and more sort of revision in that area, or you can get them to guess those 4 characteristics. And that's about transferring the knowledge from one thing to another. And then you can actually just get them to do the interactive activity and where you put them in the categories. So here we are, we put them in the non-living things. And then if we look at the book, and we can just click on it.
When reading a storybook, the book does not grow over time or reproduce. It also does not need food, water, or air, and does not respond to changes.
Okay, so there we go. It doesn't respond to changes. It does not need water, food, or air. So it's an animate object. So, you know, you can ask them again, what do they think the characteristics of non-living things are? And you can get them to describe it. Or if you think they need more practice and more revision, then they can just click on it and then, you know, they get the repetition as before. And of course, then you can mix and match that with what you have in the classroom and ask them to like go and run, you know, and find what they have in the classroom. So don't feel you just always have to stay on the computer. You can also mix it with hybrid learning.
Look at the cat on the floor. Did you know that cats can respond to sound by moving their ears? A cat is a mammal. It needs food, water, and air to survive. It can respond to changes, grow over time, and reproduce by giving birth.
Okay, so here we are again at the cat, and you know it's slightly different each time. Obviously, the cat can respond to what's going on in their environment. In this case, it's music. You know, they can eat food and drink water, and then of course there are changes in the environment, so they grow over time. And then of course there is the reproduction aspect. So all of these are really important for living things. And you know, I find that if you just do this a couple of times and then get, you know, the students to think of their own cats at home or their dogs or even insects, you know, if they have a little pet insect or something, I think that's really fun. You know, and the important thing is obviously to think about their context. So yeah, it's really good to actually go quite thoroughly through, you know, what you've learned in the previous exercise and how this can be a bit more interactive.
Great job. You managed to classify them into the correct groups. Good job.
So the key word here is classify. So, you know, if you also want to learn about the vocabulary.
Tim found 2 more objects around the house. Which of the following is classified correctly according to the heading? Click on the correct answer.
So you have here living things, and then you have non-living things. So let's have a look. So living things, do you think that that is correct? It's in living things, it's probably not correct. So cup, uh-oh. So you can ask the students, okay, why do they not think it's a living thing? Or if they think it's a living thing, ask them to describe maybe what the characteristics are. And then we have 2 birds here, which are in living things. So maybe, you know, if they can get that, then they can click on it. And let's check.
Try again.
What's going on here? Well, if we have a look, bird is in the correct one, but not fish. So it's nearly right. And so that's the thing. So, you know, also encourage the students to have observation and to look not only at one column, but also the 2 columns, and that they're classifying correctly in both columns, not just one column. So we have a look here. So living thing, bird, non-living thing, stone. Looks like that could be it. Let's try and let's check.
Fantastic. We have successfully grouped objects into living things and non-living things based on their characteristics. Well done.
So this is really important because they've not only learned what the characteristics are of the living things and the non-living things, but also they've learned exactly how to classify. Now, this is like the base of scientific knowledge. They've observed, they've seen the characteristics, they've also classified into 2 columns, and that's going to set them off for the future in many, many other areas. And, you know, also it brings a little bit of organization into a student's mind, and so that they won't just see things as a mass chaos, but they'll start to say, okay, this needs to go here, this needs to go here. So it's also good not only for obviously the foundation of scientific knowledge, but it's also good for things like social and emotional learning for organizing your environment, often which is pretty chaotic when kids are that age, and also when adults have a lot to do. So, you know, it also helps with, you know, obviously children around the house and, you know, helping their parents and so on. So it has a knock-on effect as well. So you can ask the students to go home and try this exercise at home. Perhaps you know, you can ask them to help their parents to put things in the right place, you know, to give things some kind of order, but also to help water the plants, to help feed the pets. You know, so it does have a social and emotional element, you know, which is also just helping, you know, students to think about looking after not only living things, but also inanimate objects, and, you know, perhaps giving them shade. For example, computers, if you're living in Singapore or if you're in England, you know, not to leave the computers outside, even though they're not living, then they also need care and respect. So there is that kind of, you know, social and emotional learning that comes with this exercise at this age. So I hope that's helped. It just gives you a small example of what the quest can do. I'm just going to click on done here, and then you can close. And as you can see, that's now going on to, you know, here we can summarize the topic and review through the quiz to earn your badge. So let's just take a look here. Okay, so this is a lot more obviously interactive. So Jane observes that a mimosa plant closes and its leaves when touched. This shows that the plant is a living thing because it can, let's take a look, grow, breathe, reproduce, or respond to changes. So, oops, you can have a look at the mimosa plant there. If we just go up. So you might want to read it a few times, or get the students to read it a few times to really like look at the actual vocabulary that's being used. So if we go again, Jane observed that a mimosa, which is illustrated there, closes its leaves when touched. So there is an effect there, a cause and effect. This shows that the plant is a living thing because it can. Now, if it's to grow, then, well, plants can grow, but in this particular case, because of the vocabulary about the effect of something happening to it, it's being affected by something, then it might be something like this, respond to changes. Which of the following statements is true for all living things? They will not die. Well, you can ask the good students, well, will your dog live forever? And you might want to get them to think about their own experiences with their pets or with their plants at home. So they respond to changes, they make their own food, they give birth to their young. Well, they make their own food. Is that true for absolutely every plant? They give birth to their young, they respond to changes. It looks like it's the same one as before, so that helps with the repetition. Farah observed her pet cat. Which of her observations does not show that her cat is a living thing? It drinks milk, it has 4 legs, it licks to clean its body, it runs when it sees strangers. Okay, so we have here that Farah is probably is a person who is observing the cat, and the observations do not show that her cat is a living thing. Let's have a look. Not quite right. So let's try again. And you can see here that there is a hint. Recall the characteristics of a living thing. Which of the observations is not a characteristic of a living thing? So it's good when you go through this exercise that there are sort of encouragements, so you don't necessarily have to tell the student straight away what the right answer is if they get it wrong. So just, yeah, don't encourage, encourage that mistakes are portals to discovery so that they can keep trying. Okay, so here we have a question. The classification table below shows the characteristics of objects R, S, T, and U. Which of the following is most likely to be a non-living thing? So we just did a living thing and now it's a non-living thing. So we have objects R, S, T, U. And our task is to find which of the following is the most likely to be a non-living thing. So we have here the different characteristics, able to move from place to place. So it looks like R can move from place to place. It looks like R needs water. It looks like R is able to reproduce, but it doesn't have legs. Okay, so we've got here S, not able to move from place to place. It does need water, and it is able to reproduce. Let's look at T. T is able to move from place to place. It doesn't need water, and it can't reproduce, but it has legs. And let's have a look at U. Is not able to move from place to place, doesn't need water, is able to reproduce, and doesn't have legs. So what do you think that could be? It might be T. Let's check. Perhaps that was a robot. So you can also, oh look, we've got a badge. How wonderful. And so you can claim that. And now we can go on to the next one. And this is the current task, which is living things need air, food, water to survive. So it's quite a comprehensive activity. It goes from presentation to practice and then also review. And the review is obviously a little bit harder and a little bit more challenging. And of course, we definitely need teachers and parents to support. They can do it on their own. It is self-directed learning. But if you do want to use it in the classroom, then you can also pause these kinds of activities, get them to explore in the classroom, get them to go outside. You know, it can be used as hybrid learning. You can also ask the students, you know, to do one part of the quest for homework, earn one badge, and then come back, which is really exciting. So I hope that's given you a bit of an idea. Obviously, there are lots of different quests, and we know we've had feedback that, you know, the quests are wanted more and more, so that's wonderful, and we're trying to do it as quick as we can. But this is really good for catch up, but also to give the students a sense that they're going on a journey and on a narrative, and gives them a bit more of a holistic idea of what those particular topics are. So I'm excited to see how you get on. Do give me feedback. I'd love to hear how your children find it and how we can improve. And so that's the quest. In the next video, then I'll be showing how you can use STEMWerkz on its own, not actually in the quest, but also for STEM stories, and also how you can link it with Nodma and the other platform, Apples. So that's for the next video. Thanks a lot.